Let me preface my statement before I delve into some data that I've compiled. Each individual's experience is different. You have people like my sister who made a good decision going to college. In high school, she was driven to study hard, make good grades, and push herself past her ceiling. She was and is the archetype of a person that should go to college. Me, on the other hand, I liked wacky tobacco, only cared about getting girls, sleeping, playing video games. I was in all the lowest classes just because I didn't care. I would sleep, cause trouble with sophomoric humor. I just wasn't the type of person that college is for. However, all of the teachers, guidance counselors, and school officials would constantly shove college in your face, which I think is very dangerous. If you make that determination and you think college is a good investment for yourself, that's one thing. But a lot of students like myself who didn't like high school in the first place felt pulled and twisted towards college. I don't know how it is now. I graduated in 2012. It might be a completely different dynamic. I remember we had a guidance counselor, or I don't know what you call them, but the people who help you pick out your classes for that particular quarter. I was telling the lady that I didn't want to go to college, and she was totally shocked. She's like, "You never even thought about it? You never even gave it consideration?" And I responded, if I'm in the lowest classes right now and I'm barely passing them, and again, it wasn't due to ability, it was due to just not giving a damn. Capable and willing are two very different things. I was capable, but I wasn't willing. But I digress. I responded to her, if I'm not even doing my work in these classes, why would I be doing the work in college classes? But I will give the vice principal credit. I straight up told him, I used to have meetings just because they wanted to pass my ass, pull teeth, dot I's, cross the T's just to get me out of there. They were kind of doing everything they could. The last day, oh, we give you a 70, your dumbass passed, whatever. But I told the principal straight up, I'm just going to go to work. I don't care about going to college. He's just like, okay, cool. And this dude, to his credit, he's like, you don't have to take the ACT then. I still don't know how the hell I didn't have to take the ACT. I didn't even take it. I also didn't have to take a foreign language. I still don't know how I got away with that. But he was pretty direct. He was pretty straight to the point. He's like, okay, let's just get this guy out of here. He's a slacker, whatever. As I got into the working world, you know how it is. It kicks the shit out of you physically, mentally, spiritually. You perform a monotonous task. I live in a factory town full of manufacturing jobs. Which, if that's your thing, that's your thing. Everybody's different. Nothing's homogenized when it comes to the human experience in this world. I would go back and forth on the line, and I just got tired of it. So I thought to myself, okay, I'll take part-time classes at the local community college. They made you take a bunch of tests. I figured, I've always been bad at math. I can barely count 1 plus 1. I think it allegedly equals 2, but I could be wrong. Don't quote me on that. But I've always been very good at writing. I've always been really good at reading. Even today, I've actually had articles published. It's not like I'm some esteemed PhD writer, but I've written stuff for a sports page. And when I sent it in to the writers who were experienced, they said my punctuation was perfect, my writing was poignant, and I was right on. And the proof is in the pudding. The individuals that read my stuff said it was good. The market, and we'll get into this, the market decides what's good. Taylor Swift, not my thing. But the market determines value. I go to community college and they put me in a remedial writing class. The rest of my classes are online. I didn't do them. But here's the crazy part. I would go to this class every week on the computer. I would literally write my paper, turn it into the teacher, and he would go across the room. Some people didn't know what quotation marks were. I mean, no offense. If you're going to college, how the hell do you expect to pass when you don't know where to put quotation marks? A lot of them wrote run-on sentences. They didn't even know how to publish paragraphs. College wasn't for me, but it also wasn't for them. Every time I was in the room, we'd be sitting at our computers. Most of the time, I'd just be watching YouTube videos or playing games on there or watching sports highlights or whatnot. But I was literally paying my hard-earned money just to waste it. It would literally be like, all right, it's your turn. And every time I was making A's, B's, he would tell me, that's a damn good paper. Or he would write something like, that's a good observation you had. Like one of my papers was about the differences in the advertising of Burger King and McDonald's. I made the observation that it appears that McDonald's, based on their advertising, is moving away from younger consumers. When I was a kid, I remember the McDonald Land, the McDonald Gang. I used to get video cassettes of the McDonald Group. But now when you go into McDonald's, you no longer see Ronald sitting on the bench. You no longer see Happy Meals being displayed. You no longer see the McDonald Gang. So it appears that they are now shifting their advertising demographic to young adults, just based on sort of my observations. And he's like, that's a damn good paper. Hell, I never thought of it that way before. And I was in a remedial class. I know what I'm good at. I can't sing, I can't act, I can't play sports, I'm uncoordinated as hell, but I can write. I've had people tell me my writing's good. The market proves it, but you get the point. I'm not here to brag or this or that, but as I opine more, I had to go see my advisor. This guy, and I don't mean to throw any disparaging remarks on him, but this guy kind of looked like Pee Wee Herman, if you guys have seen that. I don't know your age group. But I walked in there, and this guy had a high voice. He kind of sounded like Hermie from the Rudolph movie, the Christmas puppet show. And he's like, the first thing he said is, all right, here are the classes that you have to take. And he spit them off. You're going to take this and this and this and this. And he was kind of spouting it off just like super quickly. And I understand he had stuff to do. But the question I asked him after that sort of left him paused in his tracks. After spouting out all these different requirements that I have to take, because I was taking something in communication at the time, I didn't know it was a bullshit degree. As he was done, I then proceeded to ask him, because he's like, any questions? And the whole time he's really fast, he's really decisive, he's really fluid in his words and thoughts and meticulous. But as soon as I ask him, with this degree, what specific job can I get that I don't already have? He paused momentarily. He was taken aback for a moment. And he kind of was lost for words. He then concluded with, as he was leaving the room, because he wasn't as attentive, but he was kind of turned away from me. If somebody's not turned towards you, it means they're nervous, or it means that they're not being attentive. If you just look at body language, I'm no expert, but that's kind of, common knowledge. They're not into you, but he kind of had his arms crossed, he was closed off, and he was kind of turned towards the door as we were in his office, and he's like, I'll get back to you on that. my thought process was I'm all about proof of concept. I'm not here to say these guys are good or bad or this or that. But the two radio guys, because I always wanted to have a radio show. I've always been good at talking, articulating things, and just kind of bullshitting, as you can kind of tell in this video. I have a gift of gab. It's not got me anywhere in life yet, but that's just what the man upstairs decided to give me for whatever reason. But the two guys that are successful, whether you agree, whether you don't, blah, blah, at the time were Rush Limbaugh, rest in peace, and Howard Stern. Neither of them had college degrees. And I tell you all that to tell you this. As I was headed out of the advisor's office, I turned to one of the, I think it was a secretary. I don't know, they have all these staffs and all these counselors and this and this and this. They have all this dead weight. If you were in a private corporation, you'd get rid of some of that to get rid of the cost, but you get the point. I'm just thinking of things in terms of a business. I told her, I was like, can you tell Mr. So-and-so, whatever his name was, I don't even remember, that I don't want to continue my college classes, that I want to drop out. She then was kind of puzzled. She was perplexed, taken aback. She's like, are you sure? And I responded, yeah, I'm 100% sure. Then she's like, what brought you to that conclusion? And I'm like, the type of job I want to have is I want to get into radio. I want to have my own radio show. The two guys that are number one in the market, I'm not saying they're good or bad or whatnot, but they have audiences and people listen to them, are Rush Limbaugh and Howard Stern. Neither of them have college degrees. So why should I get a college degree when no one who you can think of with success in that industry has a college degree? And she didn't know how to respond, but that's when I sort of decided to drop out. But even other popular people on the radio, like Joe Rogan, I don't know if he has a college degree. I don't think he does. And if he does, he doesn't have a college degree in communication. He has the number one podcast in the world. Anybody I can think of. There's another guy, I forget his name, but he's pretty popular. He's a lawyer. He has a degree, but it's in law. It's not even in communication. Like, I looked at the top rated podcast on Spotify the other day. I was just curious. And none of the people who were in those podcasts had college degrees in communication. But that's when I sort of came to the epiphany, the realization that college wasn't my thing. Now let's get into some of the data, whatever you want to call it. Here's what I found based on my research. It took about maybe 5-10 minutes. The student loan debt balance in the U.S. has increased by 66% over the past decade, and it now totals more than $1.77 trillion. Ladies and gentlemen, let me explain that into layman's terms. The student loan debt in the U.S. has increased by 66%, almost 70% over the past decade. Let me ask you this. If somebody wanted you to invest in a business proposition, and 66% of the people who invested in that business ended up needing you to bail them out, would you think that's a good investment? You might think you're the exception. You might think you're a savant. You might think you are different than the rest. But if you're a pragmatist, if you're a realist, you're going to tell yourself, that's probably not a good investment. We'll put this into more perspective. $1.77 trillion. 1 trillion, people hear that term and it becomes more like something you hear and you kind of just forget about. Something that goes in one ear and out the other. $1 trillion means 12 zeros. Imagine writing out right now 1, then preceded by 12 zeros. What about 1 trillion seconds? Think about this. Seconds, not minutes, not hours, not years, but 1 trillion seconds ago, the pyramids had not been built. And there was no written history. And this is a side note, but Herodotus, who is considered the father of modern history. He wrote something called the Greco-Persian Wars, I think it's called. I can't remember. It's been a while. But he's the first person to actually comprise written history into the book, into a volume of books, and he's considered the father of history in 420-something BC. I can't remember. It's been a while. But I say all that to say, a trillion seconds ago, there's no such thing as written history. There's no such thing as your great, 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 great 5 hours later. Great, great, great grandparents. When that. Here's some more numbers. Since 1999, the average cost of a college education has increased by 200.7%, while wages have only grown by 95.98%. Now, the counter argument, the flip side that I hear is that on average, college graduates make more than non-college graduates, which is true. However, if you make more in college, if you're studying, if you have enough skills that you learn in college to pay for your student loans, then you shouldn't need to be bailed out by the government. All of these super intellectual philosophy majors need all the dumbass people like me who didn't graduate to bail their ass out. It's so funny to hear that. It's comical to hear that. That you're an idiot because you think this way or that or this or that. You're from Tennessee, you idiot. I get this all the time when I'm debating people on the internet or in different forums when they don't know how to add anything. They're like, you're from Tennessee, you dumbass. And I'm like, do you have a college degree? They think it's a flex, but it's really not. And then they're like, oh yeah, I do. And I'm like, okay. Let me ask you this. Do you have student loans? Yeah? So, let me get this straight, Mr. Einstein, Mr. Tesla, Mr. Thomas Edison. You need idiot, hillbilly, hick, redneck, college dropout, factory worker, me, to bail your ass out. And you need millions more like me to bail your ass out because you had a bad investment. Makes a lot of sense, Mr. College graduate. Go fuck yourself. And if you have a college degree and I know a lot of people with college degrees, they're nice people, they're engineers, they're teachers, I respect it. But don't go around and brag about how you're so educated, you're so intellectual, you're so intelligent, but you need to be bailed out by idiots like me. Don't do it. Here's the numbers here. 45.3 million people have student loan debt. You do the math, America has 331, roughly the equivalent of million people in the continental United States. That's 13% of the population. So 13% of the population wants the other percentage to bail them out. How's that fair? Now, a couple thoughts as I continue. Number one, all the Occupy Wall Street people that bitched and whined and complained and stuff like that, who talked about corporate bailouts. Here's my thing. I don't agree with corporate bailouts. The first one was Chevrolet in the 70s under the Carter administration, and all the time you have the banker bailouts. But the Occupy Wall Street movement, I was a little kid during that time, and I was probably playing Xbox and getting high. But based on what I've looked into, it was about not bailing out the bankers with our tax money, which is fair. But you can't go around and be against corporate bailouts based on a principled position, and then at the same time expect for poor people like me who can barely put food on the table to then bail your ass out because you got a stupid art degree, a stupid psychology degree, a bullshit culinary degree. You can't get a job, and then you want people like me to bail your ass out. How's that fair? And the reason college is so expensive, there's a couple of reasons. Number one, because I asked counselors this. This isn't me saying it. This isn't my own opinion. This is what I've heard from countless college professors, countless individuals involved in high academia. If I want to get a degree in engineering, why do I have to learn about history? Why do I have to learn about Shakespeare? Hell, why do I have to learn about musical appreciation? Like, what's the point? The point is, and here's what they told me, again, it's not me saying it, we want you to become a well-rounded, intelligent thinker. We want you to know some about science, some about history. We want you to know some about economics, blah, 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 blah. You get the point. To become a genuine, curious person. Now, something I like to do is I enjoy going to the library. It's free. And they have books on pretty much any topic you want. And if they don't have a book on that topic, you can order it for like $20. There's a book I wanted to get recently about Henry Kissinger. It's called Art of the Game. It's about some of the Middle East policies of Henry Kissinger and the Nixon administration. I was kind of curious about that. Bought it. It's like $20-30. You pay more just for gasoline to get back and forth from your home to the college on that. But I went to the library recently, and I'm doing all this to symbolize something. I got a book about Napoleon Bonaparte. I got a book about the solar system, other suns, other worlds, the Crusades, philosophy. Free. Free, 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 free. Got a book about Napoleon Bonaparte that I started. Very good book. Free. I've always been a curious person, but I can get that knowledge from that. Or hell, if you don't like reading books, you can always watch YouTube videos. There's one of the best channels you'll ever find. It's called Kings and Generals. This dude is excellent. He's the Michael Jordan of history. This dude is amazing. Kings and Generals. That is more entertaining, more informative than any history lecture I've ever had in my life. I mean, say that you want a lecture. You can go online and you can watch Harvard history lectures if that's what you're into. All this information is free. Now you might make the point, I want to teach history for a living. Here's the problem. You're literally going to pay more just for your room and board if you live on campus than you're going to make in your salary. History teachers don't make a lot. Furthermore, there's not a shortage. Think about it. We have shortages of plumbers, shortages of mechanics, shortages of people that work on electricity, shortages of shoe repair people. We don't have a shortage in the labor market of history teachers. You have tons of history teachers that are looking for jobs that can't find them. And I say this, I'm a historian. I've read probably over 200 books just on the Roman Empire alone. But all of them, I've either bought them on Amazon or used bookstores or just got them at the library. And I know as much. I've talked to history majors. I know as much as they do, if not more in some of the areas. But the point is, what can you do with that degree? I would love to teach history about the Middle Ages or the Byzantine Empire or the Crusades, blah, blah, blah. But you're not going to make any money doing it. And you shouldn't expect for someone to bail your ass out when you do all that. But here's why college is so expensive. One of the reasons, there's a lot of reasons. One of them is because you have a lot of waste. Think about it. What purpose does a college history or geography teacher really serve? I'll give you one better. What purpose does a communications or a philosophy teacher, what purpose do they serve other than getting people to get the degree they have, further shorting the labor market, and that's it. That's all they do. I mean, what the hell are you going to do with a philosophy degree? And if you're a very philosophical person, you should know that if you waste your time getting a philosophy degree, then you most likely, philosophically speaking, aren't very philosophical to begin with. The number one degree, I looked up the degrees. The number one degree, 19% of graduates get business degrees. Now, business degrees are useless. Think about this. Again, I'm all about proof. If you have evidence, facts, figures, or numbers, and I'm completely wrong, send me data. I'll read it. Anything. If you want me to read a book about this of why I'm wrong, I'll read it. I want evidence. I want facts. I want reason. I want proof. When it comes to business, think about it. Jeff Bezos, Bill Gates. My uncle, who for a while, and I'm giving him credit, my uncle, has a good amount of money. He owned his own business for a while. He owns kind of a side thing now, but this dude, and proof of concept, he had in his older house, he downsized now, but he had a pinball machine, he had like an arcade, he had air hockey, he had a swimming pool. He went to vacation. I mean, hell, he's been able to retire at like in his 40s and not work, with just a little side hustle going on. But he never went to college. For a while, he didn't even get his GED until he kind of, dropped out of high school. But the point is, if you want to start a business, reading about business, everybody wants to have, you want to have a good idea. But I'd rather listen to somebody like Steve Jobs. I like to listen. I'm not a fan of Warren Buffett. I'm not a fan of Jeff Bezos personally, but I like listening to, I'll listen to Jeff Bezos when he talks about business because he knows what he's doing. Say what you want about him, but he has proven that he's able to build a business. I'd rather listen to them, or I'd rather listen to someone who's an actual business owner. If these teachers are so good at business, then why are they teaching about it and not doing it? Why are they reading a bunch of books that someone else wrote, making you regurgitate that instead of saying, here's what we're going to do. Build a lemonade stand or build a stand and see who makes the most sales. Let's do this. Make the profits. You'll get more experience actually setting up your own side business, getting rejected multiple times, than you will just listening to someone regurgitate and repeat things about business. Number 2 is health. It's 12.6%. Now, nursing, that's a good degree. If you want to go to school to be a nurse, we need more of you. Traveling nurses are actually really scarce these days. There's a big shortage in the labor market. And if you're going to go to college, why the hell don't you look at the labor market first? Like, I was talking to somebody the other night on a phone line. I don't want to give them up, but I'm like, so you're 3 years into your degree and you've not looked at the labor market. Give me a break. Good Lord Almighty. But health, that's a good one. 7.9 is social sciences and history. Social scientist. If you want to get your PhD, okay, but if you just get your regular degree, your 4-year degree in psychology, you can't do dick with that. You can be maybe a school counselor. I make more money, not flexing, but I make more money per hour just putting parts together in a car factory than a school counselor does, and I don't have thousands of dollars of debt and a high interest rate to pay all that shit back, But that's the thing. If you were just going to say, because a lot of people say, we need to make college free. Well, that's a different conversation to have. But if we were to make it free, we'd have to change the model because you would be passing on the cost from them directly to the taxpayer. And the problem is you have waste. Like if you have a leak in your home, right now I got some plumbing issues going on. Welcome to 2024. Started the year off right with my TV messing up and plumbing issues. New year, new me, right? You know how that goes. But I can keep letting the plumbing issues proceed. All it's going to do is increase costs. But if I want to lower costs, then I have to bring in someone to cut waste. That's what businesses do. They get rid of paper waste. They get rid of people. You'd have to get rid of these diversity counselors. You'd have to get rid of these communications teachers and just keep the engineer teachers, the nursing school teachers, or whatever. I don't know what you call them. But you'd have to get rid of a lot of dead weight if you're going to say make it free. And maybe you should, maybe you shouldn't. I'm not here to have a political discussion here. That's another conversation. But even if you did make it free, it wouldn't make it more affordable, and it wouldn't make it cost less for whoever you pass on that cost to. But that's all I got. That's just kind of my thoughts of college and why I kind of think it's a waste. But before I conclude, let me say a couple things. If you know exactly what you're doing when you go to college, it's for you. Like my sister knew she wanted to be a teacher. Now she's teaching in another country. Worked out for her. Another one of my friends, she wanted to be a nursing student. She went to college, got her degree, and now has her own apartment. She's a nurse. It worked out splendid. It worked out handsomely. It worked out flawlessly for her. And I can name others. I know someone who's an engineer. I know someone who studies virology, who works in a lab, and now he works at a bank. It worked out for him. But think about how many people it's not worked out for. Tons of people. I used to work at a restaurant. I used to be a dishwasher at the restaurant. And a lot of the waitresses, they had degrees in art, culinary, and psychology. I asked one of them one night, what can you do with your degree? And she's like, it's useless. Like, I give her credit for being poignant and honest with me. She's like, honestly, this degree is useless. I wish I never got it. It's an art degree. It's totally useless. College is a waste of time for most people. And I'm like, I really respect that. I really appreciate that. But, and then they say, you're an 18-year-old kid. You're making them get piled with all this debt. That's immoral. Well, the rule has actually changed. Let me give you something else, and then I'm out of here. The Obama administration, I'm not here to be political, blah, blah, blah. I don't like any politicians. They're all like the people in Vegas. They spread the cheeks, and they sell it to the highest bidder. There's no difference between a politician and a worker in Vegas. Other than the worker in Vegas decides to screw the consumer, while the politician decides to screw the U.S. population, the U.S. voters. All that being said, Obama changed how it worked. It used to be banks that would loan to students. But now the federal government actually loans money to the students in the United States. When the government loans, that means everybody gets it. Banks are very selective. If you're buying a house, if you're needing money for a business, if you're needing some capital for this or that, they're going to look at your credit score. They're going to look at your transaction history, your patterns of behavior, as they like to call it. They're going to be very selective on, and you have to have somebody do the cosign, blah, blah, blah. But if the government's giving it out, everybody gets it. It's like Oprah. You get a car, you get a car. You get a student loan, you get a student loan. So while you have people who have no business going to college, who in a free market with the banks would not be approved, since the government's giving everybody all this, that's the way it is. And there's a couple sectors that the government's gotten involved in increasingly more. Health, education, and housing. Those three areas have skyrocketed because the government doesn't work in the free market. It's not supply and demand. Healthcare, homes, and education. And the more they get involved in, the more it's going to skyrocket.